your mind, time to redefine. You're the spiritual quest, leaving the rest behind. Ungovernable, breaking through the status quo. We untamable, watch our spirit elevating consciousness. Yeah, we on the rise. No system can hold us down. We're reaching new heights, breaking through the chains, breaking through the wall. Ungovernable.
So, Jocelyn was pre-gaming a little bit. I totally did.
I've already drank half my water.
Yeah. I would be lying if I said I wasn't pre-gaming. So yeah,
well, we had dinner.
We had a fantastic afternoon and dinner.
I had a nap.
And when we go to get our beverage for the actual show, sometimes we stop and have a beverage when we pick up the beverage.
It's a friend of ours that does the brewery.
It is.
We feel like we can't just leave.
Yeah. So, weirdest intro ever, but it's just the way it rolls here, or the way we roll. So this is Ungovernable. I'm Matt. This is
Jocelyn.
Yeah,
Why
there you
don't
go.
you ever say my name? But go ahead.
I want you to
Yes.
say it. I can say it for you. I mean,
No.
is what it is.
I'm good saying it.
Oh, all right, good. All right, fantastic. I'm not in trouble yet, people. All right. So we have a really fantastic guest tonight.
Yes.
And
I'm so excited.
we want to get to that as quickly as possible. So I think we're done with our diatribe here at the top.
Are we?
A reminder, what are we drinking this evening?
Oh, we did stop at the brewery, and but just a side note, we have Dry Farm wines, but they didn't drop it off for us. They like tried 3 times.
Yeah, UPS apparently gives you a sheet where you can sign the back of it.
But
You sign the back of it, and then they don't give you anything. They just give you another sheet. It's really
and then
weird.
It's a second post-it.
So yeah,
we're doing
Lucha
Double
Libre.
Tap Brewery, Lucha Libre.
Yes.
This is actually really good.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Like all of their beers are really good.
It's
Not
like
that we tried them all.
It's like a how should I explain it? It's like a microbrew version of like Yingling.
A little
almost.
bit, a little more bitter.
Yeah, a little bit. It's got a little more flavor to it. So, all right. With that, like I said, we have a fantastic guest, and I want to make sure that she gets on.
Different and fun.
Yes. And so we're definitely spreading our wings here. So like we've done some pretty conventional type stuff, I would say, or at least for most
Well, I don't know
normies.
if Jem was conventional.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like massage, but therapeutic and channeling and energy work
Activation.
and that kind of thing. Yeah. So, but don't cover up the camera.
Oh.
Anyway, so we are joined this evening by Katherine Flynn. She's a channeler and certified intuitive life purpose coach, a psychic medium, and an artist who supports people in unlocking their life purpose with channeled wisdom and grounded guidance direct from source. She has channeled several spiritual beings, with the latest being a druid whom she has worked with in other lifetimes. Through her experiences and channeling the Druids and Source, she assists others in finding the optimal path to live their true life purpose. She creates a space where spiritual guidance feels approachable, empowering, and easy to integrate into life. I'm not
sexy.
I'm impressed that I got through that, Katherine, without murdering the words too badly. So
I need a shortened one is what I'm picking up here.
yeah. No, that's okay. I maybe for like complete lushes like me. Yes, yeah, you might need a shorter one. But welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking time out to come here.
Well, thank you for having me. I was really looking forward to this. It'll be fun.
Yeah. So you've already had a session with
me. First of all, wonderful. I loved being with you, Katherine. I thought it was awesome. And I still think about some of the things that you channeled and some of the images. And I did go out and make a bouquet with like random.
Oh, good.
And funny enough, my daughter did that today, right?
Oh yes,
The
yeah.
littlest.
On her own volition.
Yes, it was like her own thing.
Yeah.
So I love it. And I think, I work with the Akashic Records.
Mhm.
So, and I totally believe in channeling and connecting to a deeper source, connecting to like a divinity, whatever you want to call it. And so I'm super excited to have you here.
Yeah. Well, I think I was excited to be here, and our session was so cool. We did, because you were on my YouTube series, which will actually, your episode should come out next week. So
Woo!
I'm excited for that. Yeah. But yeah, it was really cool. The imagery that I get, during while I'm channeling and then afterwards, and I don't remember specifically what we talked about. I do remember us talking about the flowers though. It is really cool how they connect it to each person that's there, and so that they are, it resonates with them. So
yeah, I felt like because we were talking about creativity, and I felt like what you channeled was what I totally sit with, but in a different, succinct language, like a language with imagery that totally resonated with who I was, or who I am, still the same person, with who I am. Right? Like it just totally, it hit a note for me, and not the way normally someone would talk about it.
So yeah, let me prompt you with this first question. So for anyone who hasn't experienced what you do, kind of like very basically, how would you explain it to them, like your process and what you're doing for people when you do a channeling session?
So, the first thing I always ask someone before I even start explaining channeling is, I'm like, have you ever heard of Abraham Hicks and the Law of Attraction? If the answer is yes, I always go, I am Esther to Abraham. And then if they go, no, I have no idea what you're talking about, I'm like, okay, I got to take a step back here. And really, I say, basically, I allow a collective consciousness, which for me, it's the Druid consciousness, to utilize me to speak to other humans, because everybody can say they get messages, but I always look at it as when you channel, you're removing that judgment, opinion, and beliefs that I have from the messages that come through. And so, psychics and other people, mediums and other people can get messages or downloads and can give that information. But unless if it's through a clear channel, sometimes it can just be slightly, and they're telling me tainted's the wrong word, but they're not giving me a better word to use, but it just kind of adjusted based on what the person saying it has, so like, I'm not in full channel mode. So I use the word tainted, and I heard that's not right. It's like, well, you didn't give me anything else, so that's what you get. But it's, it's that whole concept of just letting the information flow. And people say, well, if you work with one consciousness, like I work with the Druids, well, are they talking to my guides? Is it about me? Is it just them? And I'm like, everything up there it's all knowing. They are going to say it one way, which is very connected to the elements, which is very earthbound, which is very about just being in the human form. But someone else that, works with, the angelic realm may say basically the same thing, but it's going to have more of that angelic spin on it. So is that a good explanation?
Yeah. And I think like my next question from that point would be, like how did you come to be able to access this? Like, is it something that you've always kind of felt like you had a connection, or you always felt like you were kind of a conduit, or is it something that you've had to learn over time and kind of like, be under the wing of a teacher or something?
Yeah. So I did not think I had any abilities at all. Growing up, I grew up in a home where we talked about angels and we talked about God and talked about, I knew about psychics, I knew those things, but to me, it wasn't what I was. I was very on you go to school and then you go get the job and then you get the house and the 401k and, you do you check all the boxes. Yeah. And so that was kind of the path I was on. I was on that career path. I was on that, this is what I'm going to do. And, I started to have an affinity to go to a tarot card class. I had never read tarot cards before. I didn't even own a deck. I had to order a deck for this class. And that was kind of the beginning of me opening up psychically. So, you know, I took in the morning and we did like 3 hours of just lecture. Like, this is what the cards are. This is what they mean. And then, you know, after lunch, we're like, okay, you're going to pair up and read someone. And I was like, are you like, what? I got 3 hours of information. I just took the cellophane off this deck. Like, it hasn't even breathed yet. So, you know, and I just read I sat down and I'm like, all right, well, I'll give it a try. I mean, I didn't know anybody there. So, I mean, what was the worst that was going to happen? I was going to never show back up there again. They were going to talk about this crazy person who showed up and cut everything off.
Yeah.
And so I sat down and I like told her the story about this necklace. And she's like, yeah, you nailed it. She goes, but it was my birthday, not our anniversary, or maybe vice versa. And I was like, what? She goes, yeah. She goes, you got everything right. And so that was kind of the opening of it psychically. And then I started really working with tarot. And then one night when I was practicing tarot was when I channeled for the first time, not knowing what it was, not ever having experienced it. I mean, I knew of different channelers, but never thought it would be me. And a woman was there who ended up becoming my mentor and really working with me and letting me understand how this process works. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was kind of the beginning of it. So I never asked for it. I never wanted it. I stopped for a while. It became overwhelming. So I actually shut it all down. Mm-hmm. And then kind of had to reset some things in my life and then say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. So it was a process. But I still had the same learning curves that others would. You know, I'm a believer anyone can channel. We're all just going to maybe do it in a different way. Some people do automatic writing. Some people do it through, you know, writing music or poetry or other things. Mine just happens to kind of, you know, be semi-trance and comes out verbally. So
I love it because I started with tarot cards at like maybe 12 or 13 and I love them. And then throughout the years I've worked in different like magical shops and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I've been exposed to a lot of different things. Yeah. And some you're like, that's definitely not for me, right?
Right. Yeah.
Some you just feel called for or called to that kind of just work through you. And I love the idea that like you had no idea and you're like, that's not me.
Yeah. It's all about, like, I tell people, like, build your toolbox. Like, there's all these different modalities out there. There's all these really cool things. You know, I'm still learning. You know, I'm reading a book right now that's really helping me look at how I do, you know, my healings, because I do channeled healings for people. Or, you know, I took an astrology class and I'm like, you know, because I had a good friend who's a great astrologer and I'm like, I just don't get it. And she's like, she goes, take this class. She goes, he can explain it to you because I'm very logical and astrology is not logical. And now I'm like, oh my God, I get it. You know, and sometimes I still call her and I'm like, I don't get it. And she'll explain to me, you know, what's going on. But it's like, build your toolbox, because the more we know about the different modalities and the different energies out there, the stronger we are as a being and the more we can rely on kind of what's available for us. So I'm glad you're doing that.
There's so many different like ways people channel too, like with your clair abilities or with ways people channel. And then there's all different kind of energies people tap into, you know. Sure. I love that like that you work with the Druids. I think that's like I've always had a specific what's it called? Intrigue in like Celtic Druidism. I remember when I was a teenager, I used to get all of those like witchcraft Druid like books to learn because I was very into this when I was younger, and I have tons of books on it. Yeah, I love it.
You had mentioned kind of like channeling the Druids, channeling angels and things like that. Is it something that you had to specifically seek out? Like, was it something like when you channel, is it something that finds you? Like, I mean, you've referenced the fact that you're kind of like channeling the Druids now. Is that something where you had to say, okay, this is where I'm kind of like trying to tap in? Or was it something that kind of found its way to you?
And they found me. I didn't even know what a Druid was when I first started. All I noticed was there was this dark figure in this big brown cloak who looked like a monk who wouldn't talk. And when I would clear the room and say, you know, anything not of my highest and greatest good, get out, he'd like look around like at everybody else there. And I'm like, I mean you. And he's like, oh, and he'd like take one step behind the threshold, just like stand there. So he wasn't scary. it was just like, I just didn't know so he just kind of followed me around. Finally, I'm like, whatever, if you want to follow me around, like follow me around. And so then, over time, I was channeling, and I started by channeling one of my guides because my vibration and frequency was more aligned with theirs. And once I started, so then it's like one day, it's like he kind of came through, and I'm like, who are you? What is this? And I wouldn't give me a name. Just I could tell that my voice got very broguish. It was a very different energy than when I channeled one of my guides. And I was explaining it to a friend. I'm like, this is what he looks like. And all of a sudden she's like, is he a druid? And I'm like, what's a druid? And I just saw him go, he goes, you got it. So then I went on this huge thing about like reading about them, researching them. And every time I'd read something, that he's like, that's not right. And I'm like, well, if you would tell me, this would be a lot easier. He's like, no, you need to do the research. You need to like put effort in. And I realized the energy I put into it was also helping him because he could give the energy back. It was that reciprocation piece of it. So, from there it's grown to, he's still, that one particular one is still around. But there's many more that I can tell when one is a little more nurturing and more feminine. Another one is very ancient, has that really deep wisdom. So different ones kind of come through based on what I'm channeling about, who I'm channeling with. And, and knowing that. So, now I've connected lifetimes where I was a druid on Earth. It's now coincidence that I look very Celtic in nature.
I was going to say, are you Irish?
I know. And the name, Katherine Flynn, like really? You can't. Not a lot Irish, but I do have some in me, or it all showed up in me. No one else got any of it. But so, yes, it was just about, they came to me. I'm a believer that you have to be in alignment with whoever or whatever consciousness you channel. Like it's about your vibration, your frequency, your ancestral line, not even necessarily physical ancestral, but your soul ancestral line. And just all of those things really play a part because, I could channel the Palladians, but I'm not really a starseedish person. I'm more of an earth-based person. So I can, but we just wouldn't have that alignment that I do with the Druid consciousness.
That's interesting because in the Akashic Records work I do, I was speaking to the other day, the soul ancestry and then your ancestral lineage in this life. And just kind of trying to explain that. It's so interesting because people who are not necessarily in this work or like exposed to this kind of work, they're like, what?
I know. Yeah, you explain all these different DNA lineages, and then like you throw on all the different bodies. We have the physical body, the etheric body, the karmic body, and they're like, "Oh, you lost me," So yeah, there's so much more there than what people know, and probably more than even what any of us know. Because we're so kind of clouded with what they're willing to let through right now.
Yeah, what was your relationship with? I would imagine you come up against or in contact with people that are at least curious, if not they're welcoming to what you're doing. I'd imagine you come in contact with a lot of people that are very skeptical, right? Or at the very least don't understand, I think, like you said. I think a lot of them are at different paths, I guess I would call it, and points in their path on in terms of like spirituality and that kind of journey, so to speak, in their life. What was your kind of path before you were introduced to this? Were you someone who was very much, I mean, I know you said, kind of the traditional, life path of, get a job and 401k and house and that kind of stuff. But like in terms of, say, religion, spirituality, that kind of stuff, what was that lead up to before you really kind of got involved in this?
Yeah, I was raised Catholic. I went to a Catholic school. I never really was much of a practicing Catholic, though. I was, one of the C&E people, the Christmas and Easter people. I didn't. Yeah. I go, but I when I was in college, I kind of had this epiphany of, and I was studying in Italy, in Rome near the Vatican, and I had this epiphany, and I'm like, wait a minute, all of these things all these rules we have, all these things are beliefs. But man put these into play. So I kind of had to step back and say, and know that I was spiritual, but not understanding what it was and where I felt. I mean, I still believe in God. I still believe in, in Jesus, but I also believe in Buddha and Muhammad and all of these other energies. And I believe in angels and, to me, it's like, we don't need to restrict religion. We need to, understand all of the aspects, because to me, the root of it is always the same. It's just love one another. That to me, that's the root of every single religion out there. So I kind of had this thought of that, and I was going down this, very career-oriented path of life, doing the, checking the boxes, and, knowing that I really wasn't really practicing Catholicism anymore, but was still very much would pray and would connect in. But it wasn't until I started really channeling that I started focusing on my spirituality. So I'm probably more connected now than I ever have been in my life prior, because I will meditate every day in some way, shape, or form. It may just be I'm out doing yard work and I'm in the garden, and that's a form of meditation, or I'm, cooking, or, making a soup or bread or whatever it is. And that's my form of meditation, because it's dead silent in the house. So I've kind of gone down that path. So I'm probably more connected now than I ever was before. But I think that basis of understanding God and, or the universe, or, whatever you want to call it, is the basis of we're all part of that. So we're just each living our life, and we're each on a different journey, and we intersect with other people, but we're just here to learn and experience. So that's kind of had to shift for me, in understanding how all this works and how it all comes in.
I really like that, because there's someone else that I've been talking to recently in another. So I have another life that I live in terms of podcasting, more in the investment world. But he said something that makes sense in the investment world, but also makes sense just in the spiritual world, right? And it's this. It's like, if you think of a pie chart of all of the knowledge in the universe, there's a very small sliver, and that's what you know, right? And then there's a slightly larger sliver, but still very small compared to the rest of the pie chart. And that's what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
And then there's everything else about what you don't know that you don't know, right?
Right.
And I find it very interesting that, and I guess maybe it's just kind of primal, or I mean, a lot of people want definitive, right? They want to know, when someone says that, whatever, the sky is blue, they want to be able to depend on the fact that the sky is always going to be blue. And a lot of people have difficulty dealing with uncertainty, right? And what I like about most of the spiritual people that we come across is that seems to be something that a lot of spiritual people embrace, this idea that they don't know everything, and they're just trying to be receptive to what's coming in and what's being, I would call it maybe introduced to them, or that they're coming in contact with.
Yeah. Well, I think the more we dig into this work, because I've been channeling for over 10 years. So, I mean, in the last 4 years of my life have been strictly focusing on this type of work. I left kind of my old life behind, and it is about, you understand that we don't always know the answer, and the answer might be my answer. Today I can look outside and go, well, the sky's kind of blue, but I'm also it's cloudy, there's a storm coming, so it's gray, it's white, and it just looks nasty out there. But I see a sliver of blue. And you guys could look out and go, oh, the sun is setting, it's orange and it's pink and it's purple and gorgeous. But neither one of us are wrong. And the person that says it's blue isn't wrong either. But, there's also differences. It's like when people say, well, a broken clock is always right twice a day. It's like the sky can be blue no matter where, but sometimes it's different. It changes. So, but, as I dig more into the spirituality, it's about realizing that what my beliefs are and my reality isn't the same as anybody else's. And that's okay, because this is my experience and where I'm at, and my learnings are specific to me based on my life path and purpose. Someone else, that even if they're walking a parallel line, even if I have friends that I'm very close to and are walking a parallel line, or family, their structure may be different. And so that's okay. Now, if they tell me that this, the sky's on the ground and the grass is up top, I'm going to go, okay, are you upside down right now? So if there's something like that, you're like, explain this to me. They're like, oh, I'm doing a handstand. I'm like, okay, yeah, you're doing a handstand. Okay, the laws of gravity are still in play. Yeah. But, it's about realizing, that I don't want to push my beliefs. And I always, anytime I work with someone or when I do, teach, I'll always say, this is my beliefs. They might not be yours, and that's okay. But I'll tell you what I believe, and you can either take it with you, you can leave it there, you can throw it out. It's up to you. And that's one thing that I think as we dig into spirituality, we're able to do more so than what, people that are a little more closed off do.
I want to say, first of all, I love that you said just a little while back, like meditation can be cooking or gardening. Because I feel like all of us have this picture of meditation, like sitting right? Like, and many of us do not have quiet lives. Like we have 3 kids. So I could try meditating in the quiet, but it's not, we also have too many dogs and a cat and all this other stuff. Like it's never going to be that piece. And so the fact that just that idea of like, we can all connect in.
Yep.
And I love that you said we can all channel. Like there is an ability for each and every one of us to channel. I think for me, I think of the relationship with your body, and because our body is our vessel in this lifetime. So whatever that meditation is for you, and it could be dancing barefoot in the grass. And it could be like gardening and hands in the dirt, or it might be sitting like cross-legged in front of red light, which is me. Like whatever it is, I love that.
Yeah, it's, everyone needs to come up with their own way to connect in. As long as you can connect with your higher self, with your soul, and just clear out the noise, that's all you need to, that's all it takes,
And so many people out there are trying to be like, well, this is the way, right? Like so many people out in the spiritual fields or whatever, this is the way you connect in. This is how you do it. But just to be aware that, you could be gardening or cooking or, and in that space, right?
Yeah. There are some days where I can sit in a quiet room and I've got a meditation room and I can sit there in dead silence for an hour and it is amazing. There are other days I go up there and within 10 seconds, I'm like, I can't handle this. I'm like, it can still be silent. I can't do this. And I'm like, I'm out of there. Like I can't move out of that room fast enough. And so it's all about where you are energetically. I mean, before I jumped on here, I was up there and I was doing yoga and I was kind of reconnecting with myself. So I had a really busy day. With some family members. And so I was like, I just need to recenter. But, there's other times where, it's like, okay, I'll just avoid it. Like I just shut the door when I walk past it in the hallway. I'm like, don't need that today. And then I might go outside or I might, go, there's a county park near me. So I might go walk through there or just, I don't know, go sit in the grass outside, just lay there. The neighbors probably think I'm probably the crazy person because they're like, what is she doing out there again? Sorry.
The other thing I like to think of is when we are like work, or if someone actively seeks out a channeler or a medium or whatever, and there is a difference between medium and channeling, which I think often people don't understand.
No.
Which I'll ask you about that in a minute. But like just the idea of like I feel like when we find somebody, and it goes back to my original idea of tarot cards, like because I am not someone who wants to go to someone who reads my tarot or who does something for me and they tell me what's going to happen and when it's going to happen, because I don't truly believe that's how it works. I believe like time is all happening at once and anything can change in a minute. But what I like is I always feel like if I'm going to somebody at that moment, I'm hearing exactly what I need. Like it's whether I like it or not, whether it jives, I'm hearing something that is going to somehow affect me.
Yeah.
Because it's what I need to hear in that moment. And that's why I really love people who channel. Like that idea that with tarot cards, I was always a reader who didn't necessarily say, well, this is going to happen. Or I was more like, well, this is what I see. This is what I feel. Take it for what it is. Right. And see where it connects with you. See where it has like something within you. Where do you get the response? Where do you get the reaction? And the same thing goes for art. When you look at a piece of art, if a piece of art affects you, like, the beautiful thing about tarot cards is the symbology and the colors and the images. And those are what evoke kind of the stuff in a lot of readers. But
you remind me of
a diatribe?
No, you remind me of the Oracle in the Matrix. You don't remember movies the way I do, but
no, I'm a quad right.
Yeah. No, just the idea that you're presented with the information that you need in that moment, but it's not necessarily some kind of predictor of the future.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I always tell people, I'm like, I'm reading this exact moment in time, and this is exactly what your soul needs to know. Now, you still have free will. So you could go and step in front of a bus and be dead in an hour, but that is a free will decision that's not on your path or purpose. And people are always like, really? And I'm like, you got to use a little extreme. But yeah, it's what you need to know. And I always, when my friends and I will get together and we'll read each other's tarot cards. And it's funny, someone will do a spread, and then we'll each read that spread. And it's like we're all giving a similar message, but we all spin it in a different way because it's our interpretation of what's coming through. And so for people that are say, oh, that doesn't connect with me, or I don't know, I'm always like, just put it in your back pocket. It'll come to you. I even do that sometimes when I'm channeling as we discuss after, because I can remember it for about 30 minutes after. They'll be like, I just don't know. I'm like, put it in your back pocket. You'll figure it out later. And I'm shocked at the number of people that will reach out and be like, I figured it out. Maybe 6 months later. Out. But it's just about that connection. So yeah, I think I totally agree with you, Jocelyn. Spot on.
Yeah, I just think that too many people think like I think that's what kills the experience for a lot of people is they think they're gonna go to somebody who channels or does tarot or whatever it be, and they want, like, why would you want to hear what's gonna happen?
I know.
Which is like the information and I love that. What your soul needs to hear.
They want to know if you go stand on this street corner at 5
Is
p.m.
my husband cheating?
You're gonna win $1 million. Like,
I know. What are the numbers?
That's what they want to know.
It's the things that people would, when I read, not so much anymore since I channel when I tarot, it was always like love, money, and career. Like those were the 3 things everybody wanted to know about. And it's like half the time I'd break people's hearts because I'd be like, no, like, but it's about where are you in your path? And then, as I talk with clients, I will say, okay, we need to talk about your alignment, because if you're not aligned to having your love, your money, and career, it's never going to happen, because you're off here, dancing in the field, doing God knows what, instead of like really putting into action to really align your life to your purpose or your highest level. And so, it's about, I try to like really streamline people back to say, what is your passion? What do you love? Like, don't be avoiding it, because if you're avoiding it, you're never going to get it. Let's work through the energies and really get to where you need to be.
And it's interesting because I work with human design too. And a lot of, you said astrology. I actually think human design is much, much simpler than astrology, even though you can still go down massive rabbit holes. Am I right? You've been through the massive rabbit holes.
I mean, I don't fully understand either one. So to me, they're both very complicated.
Yeah. Human design intrigues me, but I don't understand it. I don't get it. But I will have a friend who will call me and she'll be like, do you want to know what I got today on you? And I'm like, sure. And she'll say it and I'll be like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. So, but yeah, I'm intrigued, but I am like, I don't know anything. I know it's a chart of the body with a bunch of like shapes on it. That's as far as.
So think of it like this. Think of like human design is like, once you start it, you have to experiment with it. Like once you get the basics of your design, you have to experiment living it. So it's like, where I don't think that's ever given with astrology. Like, I don't think when you go to an astrology and they're like, hey, experiment with this. I don't think they do that the same way. So human design, like you get pieces, you get strategy, authority, type, profile, all this stuff. And it's like experiment with what this means. And then the other side of human design is gene keys. And that's like a contemplative journey. Like contemplate these themes and ideas and shadows and gifts and see how they fit with you. I just feel like they're just, when I look at astrology, and I love astrology, but when I look at it, excuse me, I just burped. When I look at astrology, I'm like, what is this? Like, it doesn't show me a path to work with it. Whereas when I look at human design, I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
And this I can play with.
I think I kind of know what you're going to answer with this question, but like, do you believe in fate? Like, do you believe certain things, at least certain things, are fated in terms of people's path?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think before we even incarnate, our path and our purpose is really laid out. Okay. We know what we're going to be good at, what skills we're coming in, and there's certain things that we're going to hit. So for some people, they are destined to meet their life partner. For other people, they're destined to have this friend. You're choosing your parents. You're choosing who your children may be. You're choosing all of those things. And those are destinies. Because I always say there's no coincidences. There's only synchronicities. And the more I live my life in that way, I'm finding that something won't make sense to me, but it always makes sense. Like I have a friend who's another channeler. Every time she and I talk, and we set up our chats like a couple weeks in advance. And every time I meet with her, I have a major energetic blow up that day. It does not matter what day it is. We can change the day. We can, it's like, I'm like, oh God, I'm meeting with Christine. Like, what's going to happen? I think it's because as I talk with her, and then we channel for each other too while we're catching up and chatting, and we've got we know a lot of similar people. She helps me work through those things. So it's like, I never question what day it falls on. I never say, oh, why is it? I'm just going, okay, it needs to be this day. So yeah, I definitely believe in fate, and we do have free will, so we can change certain things. Yeah. But I think if you need a learning, it's there. So then people always say, well, why did I break my leg? Like, what did I learn out of that? And I'm like, well, maybe you needed to learn to let someone help you. Or maybe you needed to learn to not be such a control freak, because if you broke your leg and you can't get around, you can't control anything.
Yeah.
But then the same thing, it's like, maybe you didn't need to break your leg. Maybe, to stop you from being a control freak or let people help, something different could have happened. Maybe you lost your job. Maybe you had a different experience. So the learning and the energy is the same, but maybe the physical ailment is different.
See, that's so interesting, because about what right before, I guess the April of 2021, I was like, all my kids were on roller skates, skateboards and scooters. And I was like, I'm going to get a longboard because I want to keep up with them. And I'm like, longboards are safe. And that's for adults and moms. First day, I'm down, dislocate my elbow, break it in 3 different space. First day, it just came in the mail, right? But and I had to do therapy after. I mean, how many months of therapy? And my dad would sit there, and he and like 2-3 times a day he would stretch my arm for me. And then in September of 2021, they died. And I, to think of why that would happen, right? But I got to experience my dad taking care of me as an adult, like 2-3 times a day, and really giving me like the attention that I needed, because I couldn't do it myself. It's interesting to think about that, right? You remember that time.
I mean, so maybe that's why you decided the longboard, so that you could have that time with your dad. That you wouldn't have had otherwise. Yeah, who knows what it was, but that's really cool that you saw the positivity in it. So.
There was a way recently that I heard someone explain this, and it's super interesting. So the theory goes that you don't necessarily have free will, you have free won't. And so the idea being that your existence is fated from the standpoint of the opportunities that will present themselves to you, right? And so your opportunity is your free won't is that you'll be presented with those opportunities, and you get to decide whether or not you are going to take it or you're going to say no, right? And so really the rate limiting step is the no, right? It's the opportunity will be there regardless. And so it's super interesting too, from the standpoint of like talking about, say, like a major injury, the loss of a loved one, whatever, financial ruin, like all these things that like people think of as bad. If you begin to think of them as opportunities, and whether or not you're actually going to kind of like lean into whatever opportunity that presents you with, despite the fact that you might be relying on the fact that it's, something bad. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something bad. It could be something amazing as well. I always thought that was really interesting, because the other way you could think about it is, like, regardless of whether or not you have fate or not, you don't necessarily know what the exact future is for you, but you know what your past, like, at least within this life, you know what your past was. So there's a definitiveness to your past. And the fact that your future is going to become your definitive past just kind of lends a little bit of like psychological, at least kind of rationalization, that there's at least some level of maybe I call it structure, right? That exists there, And I think a lot of people that think of like free will think of it from the standpoint of, all right, at this moment in time, like, you know,
I could choose
I could blast off into space, right? Like, no, you freaking can't. Like, no, that's not within the realm of reality. There are guide rails within there, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was like a super interesting way to pose
I
it,
have never
because
heard that.
most people want to focus on the positive, right? Like
Right.
the activeness of it. But if you think about it from the standpoint of it being an opportunity that's presenting itself to you, it becomes more of a structure than a just kind of like, you know, random cacophony of things that are just happening, right? Like,
it definitely narrows it down. And if you say it like that, it definitely is like,
Mhm.
well, it definitely brings it down into like your own life.
Yeah.
You know, the idea of not being able to just jump on a rocket or something, right?
Yeah. Did you like choose your own adventure books when you were younger, Catherine?
I did not read them, but that is like the motto of my life. Like, create your own adventure. Like, I bought a new house and had a heavy yard and needed to cut the grass, and I haven't cut grass on a rider ever, or I haven't cut grass with a push in 20 some years. And my cousin Collins, I'm like, how'd it go? I'm like, let's just call it choose your own adventure. I'm like, there is no rhyme or reason to how the grass is cut, but it's cut. Like, it's done.
Yeah.
That's how we groom our dog.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, that is the motto of my life. I don't know, just choose your, like, I try to roll with it. I was such a control freak for so many years. You know, had to make sure things were done a certain way. And, you know, now I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, let it come, let it be. So, yeah.
So can you just for a minute speak to the difference between medium and channel, like being a medium and being a channeler?
Yeah. So I kind of say, and I typically try not to use the hierarchical thought process, but, you know, we always look at psychics as kind of like the beginning. So people that are psychic, you know, intuitively know things, tap in. So they could be tarot readers, they could be palm readers, they could just be people that just naturally know things. And then on top of there is medium. So every medium is a psychic. Mediums are those that connect with the spirit world, mainly the loved ones who have passed. So they are able to bring them in and really kind of give messages from those loved ones who have passed and give those messages there. So they work mainly with spirits that were recently on Earth. Channeler is above that. And because every channeler is a medium and a psychic, but not every medium is a channeler. And a channeler is where we really are that open conduit that allows information to flow through us without our beliefs, judgments, or opinions involved in it, and really let it flow through us to bring it through. So, you know, I, being a semi-trance channeler, allow it to come out verbally, but I can also do automatic writing. I also, in my artwork, I channel it. My healings, that's all channeled energy and channeled knowledge. But I also can do mediumship work. It's not really my strong suit, I guess. It's not where my skill set lies, but I can, you know, connect in. And then I'm also a medium because I know things. So those are kind of the differences and kind of how, and the Druids always hate it when I give things hierarchical because they're like, there's no hierarchy. But I'm like, for people to understand it, I kind of have to make it a little bit hierarchical. So.
Yeah. I love how you said that because I've always been in awe of people who are mediums. And I've never called myself a medium, but I definitely channel. And at the same time, when I'm in the Akashic Records, I feel people who've passed. I very much work with my parents and my ancestors.
I do have to ask this question.
Go for it.
So I'm a born skeptic. Okay.
Yes.
But that being said, I've seen enough over the last at least 4 to 5 years to make me question a lot of what I thought I had figured out. Right.
Yeah.
Just the fact that I'm married to this one right here has done worlds to change my perspective. But so, in your opinion, do you think that there are people that are out there that are literal, kind of like scam artists where they haven't really put in the work? They're just there kind of masquerading as someone who has put in the work and actually does kind of like know the techniques or know the way to really kind of open up and be this access point.
Yeah. You know, sadly, I do think there are people out there that aren't maybe as honest about where they are in their path or as truthful. You know, and I always tell people, work with someone that resonates with you. You know, if you are truly in alignment, you're going to work with someone that resonates. And no psychic or medium or channeler, if they're truly like, you know, done their work, are being totally honest with you, they're never going to tell you exactly everything you want to hear. You know, that is that, you know, if they do, I always question that. Because I think
that's like the line. What's the line from shoot, I can't remember the movie, but it was like the line is like, I think it's like maybe from like Couples Retreat or something, where he's like, they're always going to tell you something amazing. Like you were or there's another movie that's like that too, and they're always like, you were never told that like you were someone who like died in the Middle Ages from amoebic dysentery, right? Like you're always a king or a prince or something like that. Yes,
right. And I get why people do that, because when I first started, you know, doing readings, I was like, you know, people would be, you know, you wanted them to be happy when they walked away. And you know, when I do, you know, if I do like I used to do like parties and stuff where I'd go to someone's house and they'd have all their friends over and we'd do readings, and I would still like some of the stuff I'd gloss over that I knew wasn't the energy of what they wanted, but it was like, you're still saying, hey, this is where you're at. And sadly, I think there's people out there that if they can scam someone else, and this is a world that seems, you know, there's a lot of people out there that don't want to do their own work. They will. But for people, just find someone that resonates with you, someone that connects, someone that, you know, is giving of them. You know, most people I know, and myself included, you know, I offer free 20-minute get to know me session. If you're like, you don't really resonate, that's okay. But at least you're not, you know, jumping in and going, oh my God, I just didn't connect with her at all. So,
yeah, and I think it goes back to that idea about tarot card. It's like you're hearing what you need to hear. You're being called to the people that are meant to tell you things the way you're supposed to tell it, or you're supposed to hear it.
Well, it's also what we talk about quite often. It's like, regardless of what the mechanism is, what's the outcome, right? If the outcome is positive, then, you know, why question it, right? Like, why think that something is wrong if you're actually
still
having
something
positive as a result?
Yeah.
And there might even be someone that's not truly tapped in and doing it that may, you know, you may resonate with and have a great session with. You know, I've gone to people before that, and I call it fishing, where they're like, you know, medium is like, okay, I'm seeing someone here that looks like this and has a name that starts with a B, or you know, someone looks like this. Do you know of anyone like that? Or, you know, like you can tell the words that they're like, oh, someone in your life that starts with a C, and you're like, yes, Kathy. And it's like, you know, and they're like, yes, that's it. You know, like you can tell they're looking for it, but maybe that's what you need in that moment in time, because they wouldn't have come into your reality and experience if it wasn't what it is.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Where I'm probably the you know, the not so great medium, where I'm like, I'm getting the name David, and they're like, I don't know, David. I'm like, well, let me tell you what I got. You can figure out how it fits. And they're like, you know who he is, but his name's not David. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I don't know why I got David. Let me figure it out. So.
What does the typical client come to you for? Is it like life coaching kind of stuff? Is it you know, is it career coaching? Like, what are they typically coming to you for? Is it just kind of a mishmash of things?
It's a mix of things, but usually it's someone that's really trying to get focused on something particular in their life. So they're trying to, you know, make a career change, or figure out who and what they are, or, you know, figure out how to start, you know, a new path. You know, I had someone that came to me and she's like, I really want to write this book, and every time I start it, it kind of falls apart. It has all these things. So you know, with her, I worked on the life coaching to really kind of hone her in on, okay, how can we over these 5 weeks work with the elements to really get you on a better path? I've had other people that you know, come just for channeling. They want the message about where they are in life, what's happening, what they're connecting with. And it's a full, you know, channeling session. Instead of with the life coaching, I'm more just tapped in and channel a little bit, but it's more about something specific. So they'll come to me for that. So it's really, you know, it's a little more of a mish. I don't try to restrict myself, but it's really for people that are ready to do the work, that are ready to know, hey, I'm ready to clear this. I'm ready to move forward. And it's about just finding that passion and fun in life again. I think that's one thing so many people miss is no one has fun anymore. Or they do, but it's like restrictive fun. You know, it's like sometimes it's like it's just fun. Like if all friends over, we'll play games, we'll hang out, we'll just laugh. You know, like just having those times of where it is. And if you look at things as work and I can't do that and this is so long, it's like, what's the point? You know, I realize that because now that I do this work, I've never been happier, you know, because this is really calling to me and connecting with me.
Yeah. And I think also her podcast, it answers some of those deeper, bigger questions. So like you can always check out, is it Ask the Druids?
Yeah.
You can always check her out on YouTube. Like a lot of the bigger questions come on there, like just those almost existential or the bigger, deeper kind of like ramblings into the world or the idea of what our existence is are on there. And
so
really
so your YouTube channel is Ask the Druids, and then your website is thechannelsource.com, right?
The YouTube channel is the Channeled Source, the same as my website. I have a series on there called Ask the Druids, because up there, which is where I have someone come on and we talk about a topic. You know, like Jocelyn, you were on, and will be released probably this next week, where we talk about a topic. So I go into a channeled state and let the guest really ask all the questions that are coming up about that topic. On there, I also have other channelings I've done from gallery readings and other things as well. But the Ask the Druids thing is a really cool way. It's not your typical podcast or series.
No, not at all.
The person is the one that's answering the questions in here, and I'm like, no, you're gonna ask me all these questions. But yeah, it's really cool. So I would tell people, you know, you find an affinity, go check it out because there's some good information on there.
Yeah, very cool topics.
Do you want to ask any more questions, or should we ask Katherine if she could do some channeling?
Yeah, I think it's amazing. You're going to be channeling a little tonight, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you're exciting.
Yeah. do you
I
guys
don't think I have any other questions.
No.
Do you?
No. Do you have to do something specific to kind of set the tone, so to speak, or kind of like open up, or is it just something where you kind of can flow into?
I just need a second to kind of flow in. Is there a topic or something you want them to discuss prior, or do you just want them to say what they've got to say?
I wrote 3 random questions.
Okay.
They're not really. The only thing that's specific to like our life is
We have one about
kids.
our life. Oh,
Yeah.
you asked a question about our life?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's actually kind of what I want to know most about.
What is the question?
It's just so what I wrote was what kind of future do our kids have to look forward to?
Oh.
But that's a very general thing. So you tell me if it needs to be more specific or if that works.
No, I think what I'm hearing them say is let's just talk. They're telling me like we have other things to talk to them about. I cannot control them. Sometimes I'm like, that was really rude. And they're like, they needed to hear it. And I'm like, okay. And the person's like, oh my God, I so needed to hear that. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe that. So I think let's just see what comes through. You know, as Jocelyn's, you know, it's very conversational. So you'll have time to ask maybe more specific questions or pointed questions or things that will kind of pop through for you. And then, we'll go from there if that works.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right. As you are allowing for information to flow, to come in, and the allowance of the knowingness that you are on a path where you need to allow yourself to see beyond what is ahead of you, see beyond what is here, to allow for yourselves to have this connection of where you're going, what you have and what may be. Because as you look at what you say, well, I'm so open, but you're open in a way that is also somewhat closed off to what possibilities are out there.
And you see your life as being done in a way that is allowing for that openness. But it is about the fluidity of things that you're missing. It is about that allowance of the fluidity of life to flow through and allow for things to come to you that you may say, well, I don't know if I want that. Well, I don't know if I connect with that. But you need to just allow those things to happen. Allow it to come through you, flow through you, and go back out again. For as all of this is coming through to you, it makes that knowingness be said that yes, you have what you need to a point, but it is about being open to so much more that life gives, that life provides. Because you are noticing in life that there are themes that continue to pop up. These themes continue to be one where you say, well, I'm not sure if I have this, or I'm not sure if this is coming, or I'm not sure of that. And so you constantly just keep saying, I'll deal with it later. I'll deal with it later. You push it away or you pull it out, and you're not truly connecting deep down in with what is there. And so all of that is happening, as all of that is shifting and coming in and reflowing with what is there. It is about you knowing that, yes, this is where I'm at. This is where I'm going, and this is how I'm going to get there. For when you walk the path you're on, you walk as two different people. You walk as this persona and this persona, but it is about the melding of the two, to be able to bring each of those together and allow for those two to become one, and then allow for that cape and mask to be taken off, for you to truly show who and what you are. For as all of that is flowing in, and as all of that is coming in, you will come to find that these things that are happening, these things that you are connecting with, will open up even more. You will be more at peace and centered with who and what you are, because that is allowing for you to truly recognize your true self, your soul self, your higher self. All of those will truly be one in alignment with you as you are moving through this path. Now, as all of that comes in, it is about shedding what no longer serves you. It is about letting go of those things that are no longer there for you, but allowing the light to come towards you, allowing that brightness of things to come through. And as all of that comes in, you will then come to find that, yes, you are where you need to be. Let the light shine on you, burn off those things that no longer serve, and truly step into the presence and the power of who and what you are. Is that helpful for you?
I think so, yeah.
What questions do you have for us today?
How? How to open up? Is it just as simple as letting it happen, or is there something specific that needs to be done?
Well, is it about stepping back and saying, letting those things come to you? Stop controlling things. Allow for the fluidity of things. It is about letting things come in and being open to what they may be, being open to what they may provide. It is about combining those two beings that you are into one, and then letting that shed off. Because if you can't let part of one and part of the other, you can't shed two different things. You can't take off the coat and the sweater simultaneously to reveal the t-shirt underneath. But it is about making the coat and the sweater one, and then as you zip up the coat and take the coat and the sweater off together, you can reveal the t-shirt. The same is for you. You have these different personas and these characters, so to speak, that you present for different reasons. They are not bad. They are not good. They are just how you have learned how to work with things. They're how you've learned to exist within the societal realm. So it's about allowing for those to come through and allowing for yourself to see within the light, to be there, to allow for those to come off. So as you stand in the t-shirt, you can feel the light, feel the sun, feel that on you. For when all of that comes through, you will then come to find that so much more makes sense to you. You have a connection to who you are, and that will make sense. So you say, well, how do I make the initial steps for that? So that is about you looking at what is coming, looking at saying, here's a decision I need to make. If I was working on this project, how would I respond? Or if I was working with this person, how would I respond? They will be two very different responses. It's about saying, how can I meld those two together? How can you talk about your understanding of the psyche, of the spiritual world, of all of the unknown things that are out there? And I also put that within the logicalness of what you also know to be true, with what you also align within more of the structure and the matrix that is there. How can you meld those two to really say, yes, this is where I am? Because you understand the logic of society, you understand the placement of where you are and where you're going. That will truly be set more because you can combine those two. So when you can combine those two concepts, and when you can allow them to be integrated as one, that is when more will come through for you. Just allow your mind to be open, for we will start giving you other thoughts. Other things will come through, and you may go, I need to look at this. I need to see that. For when you can do that and when you can have that, you will truly find that so much more is there for you. So much more makes sense, and you have the peace and the knowingness of who and what you are. Is that helpful for you?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions?
Oh, well, I am interested in the year 2027 and where we're heading to into the year 2027, as my human design little geek inside is learning about, and what necessarily is, where are we heading as far as our everyday daily life and what it looks like.
So your everyday daily life for many will not change. It may not look differently. But if you look at the shifts within the paradigm, the dimensions, and within the densities that are coming through, much of that will be shifted by the time what you're looking at of 2027. Although it may be a little before, it may be a little after, but that is a commonality of what is there. And if you think about that as all of this shifting is happening, as the veil is getting lighter, as people are deciding, are they staying, are they exiting, as they're having the chance to have more learnings right now at this lower density, because it is easier to learn at a lower density than it is at a higher density, they're having those constructs. So it is about you understanding that, yes, from a daily standpoint, things may be the same, but they also may be different because your consciousness is going to be reconnected in a different place and time. You may find that, yes, the daily things are simpler, but you look at things differently. You say, I'm not going to worry about my finances. I'm not going to worry about what will happen tomorrow, because it will all be set. It will all be there. So you may just see those shifts in kind of how the consciousness works within the construct, because as you're more connected in with the spiritual realm, with source, with all the unknowns that were there before, it is about that realignment of each being. And when all of this paradigm really comes in and really sets in, there's an alignment piece that will have to happen with all of the beings on earth. And so that has started for many, and it will continue up to and a little after that point. But that is when you'll feel the biggest shift in what is there. And when there is an alignment, it is almost as if there's a reset happening that people may not recognize, but it is that reset of saying, okay, we have the new grid in, we have the new set. Now all the beings on that grid just need to be slightly adjusted, updated, or realigned so that they are more open and connected with this. The same way you can say that when you have an electric flow of grid, you can say, well, we need to update this transformer. And so you replace that and you resend out the energy in each home, and each place may go, oh, well, it feels a little different. There might have been a little adjustment, a little change. Maybe the lights turn on faster. Maybe there's a larger pull. It's the same concept that's coming in with the paradigm shift and with the matrixal grid, that all of that energy that is there, it's going to flow much faster. It's going to flow much more connected, which is going to allow for beings to truly be more tapped in to where they need to be and to truly know their path and their connection to source. Does that make more sense to you?
Yeah. So when you say like the matrix and paradigm, are you talking about like people going to a 5D or 4D kind of reality, or are you talking something different?
No, it is within that same thing. So when you talk about the matrix, as you know that all humans in this whole reality is within more of like a matrix setting. But then there is these dimensions that you talk about. So you talk about the 3D, the 4D, and the 5D. But there's also the paradigm shift that is overreaching on all of those. So yes, as people move up into the fourth dimension, that will also shift where they are, and that will shift kind of their construct of where they sit. The paradigm lies all around that, is all the energy that is coming through and that is flowing through. And that is about that knowingness that, yes, this is happening. The same way you can say children that are born now, babies come in and they're very connected. They're very well known. Well, they're coming in with all of that information almost pre-programmed in them. They don't have to lose it or set it aside to understand the density. So you will find that by that time frame that you're looking at, that it's almost as if some people will be living in two different worlds. Some will be very much connected and allowing for this to come through, and they will always feel the positivity of things. Yes, there will be negative events that may happen in their life to help them learn, but they will live more of that openness structure in placement. And then there will be other people that will constantly have hurt and trial and issues and problems because they're not aligned. Because when the grid shifted, they reattached in, but they didn't reattach in the right way because they were so closed off. And they said, well, I'll just reach up. The same way you can say, well, I can power my home using one extension cord and I'm going to plug it into the neighbor's house. Well, the extension cord plugged into your neighbor's house is not going to work as well as if you said, nope, I'm going to connect right into the energetic grid. And that is going to allow for my home to be bright and to be better. The same thing can be said for humans. They may say, well, I'm going to connect in because I have to, but that doesn't mean that it's the right way to do it. And we use the word right because it's not right for their overall soul and higher self to truly have the biggest allowance and energy. But it may be right for that consciousness and that soul at that moment. And maybe it's about them breaking through that and then learning they need to connect in differently. Or maybe it is just that there's too much fear there. And so they're going to say, I'm going to hold off in this lifetime, but I'll come back in the next in a very different way. Does that make more sense to you?
Yes. And what could is there any advice or guidance in as that shift happens, like plugging your outlet into the right place or seeing or feeling into opening into what is best for you at that moment when the paradigm is shifting?
Well, it's about the work you put in now, because it is about you understanding that for that person that's very fearful, it's about shifting that structure and that belief system so that allow for them to be more open to what is out there. If they're very closed off saying that's not the case, I don't believe that, we're a world headed toward disaster. Look at the political set. Look at the climate set. Look at all of these things that are happening. We're going to all die. The earth will blow up. Well, that is not a good place to be. And they will choose to plug into their neighbor's house. But if they start to say, well, this is what the earth is going through, that this climate shift is about the world realigning to the energy that is here. And if you look back through the millennia, that there's been this happening before. There is the thaw, there's the freeze again, there's all of these changes happening. And saying, yes, we need to do what we can, but we need to allow for the energy to flow through. Or just looking at things differently, that just is an allowance of that. So it is about each being saying, yes, how can I look at things differently? How can I align with my path? How can I align with what calls to me? For when I'm able to do that is when I will truly feel that sense of who and what I am. And when I do that and when I have that, I will know that this is where I need to be, that this is the connection, and that I will always have all that is needed and all that is necessary. Is that helpful for you?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I think that's the idea of, it just totally makes sense. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I have one more. I have one more question. Will our children inherit a world or a life that is better or worse than the one we have now?
Well, you have to understand that your belief structure on better or worse is different than what it could be. What you need to understand is that they will inherit and they will bring to them what is right for them. So with the new paradigm shift, as we mentioned, to someone, they may see that the world is in a worse position, that water is melting. And so the rivers and the lakes and everything and the oceans are all rising. We're losing aspects. We're seeing the negative components of it. But then they could also say, but look at the aquifers are being replenished. Look at the water that's going back into the earth to allow for life to flourish again. So it is about understanding that what you see as positive and negative is also up to their perspective of what is positive and negative. But what we can say from an earth standpoint is that as the light is shown upon the earth, as everyone can shift within this paradigm, and as we can allow for the energies to come through, it is part of why we've come here, is to really allow for this knowledge and this information to come through, to understand that healing can happen simultaneously, that there are things that people can do, that when you can rely on earth, that you are an earthly being. Embrace the human body, embrace the human form for what it is and for what it is doing for you to have this experience. That when you can look at the earth and be grateful and have gratitude and love for what it's providing for you, including the human body that you inhabit right now, that is the biggest shift that needs to happen. Because when you can give gratitude, if every being on the planet could give gratitude at the same moment for the earth and all that it has provided, all would be shifted, all would be helped. But instead, they always think, oh, look at how awful this is. Look at how awful that is. Not understanding that, saying, oh, well, it is awful, all of the pollution that is in the ocean. All that is telling the ocean is that you are still awful. Instead of saying, look how grateful we are for what is still there. Knowing that we can assist in cleaning it up and allow for the energies to dissipate all of that pollutional type things. So it's about shifting the mindset and the belief structure to allow for the energy to be positive toward things instead of negative towards things. Does that answer your question in a very roundabout way, though?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Of course. Anything else you have?
I have a question that's not exactly related to that, but speaking about the idea of, being positive about things, and especially we were just talking earth and you're totally into the balance of the earth and stuff. There's a big movement, and I'm very into it, is this of doing shadow work. Do you think there's a really, when you're looking at your psyche, your heart, your soul, doing the shadow work, is that something that is helpful?
Well, yes. When you look at shadow work, it is about looking at what is deep within, because as you know, that there are all aspects of each being that need to be worked through, that you can pick up through past lives, through this particular lifetime, or just energies that come to you. So yes, when you can clear that out is when you can make more space for the light. It's almost saying, I've had the experience, now I'm learning the lesson. I'm accepting the lesson. I'm letting go of that. I'm not holding any difficulty, any hardship. Many people will talk about the dark night of the soul, but it is about the dark night of the ego. All of these things coming up for the ego to say, I no longer need this. It's no longer works for me, because they can come in within the physical body, within the karmic body, or within the etheric body. That patterns are also passed down too through your ancestral line or your ancestral soul line. You will notice that there will be a continued pattern of, say, someone that loses children, they have miscarriages, the child dies, that there's always a constant. And you go, okay, how do we break this pattern? But that has also been passed down because it is about understanding and not learning. So it is about accepting what is there, learning from it, shifting it, and letting it go. And sometimes it can be allowing it to be forgiven. Sometimes it can be letting it see love. There are many different things that it can show, or many different things to clear it. But it is about saying, I'm allowing this to be seen, and now I'm allowing this to either transmute, to reset, to be let go, or to just allow it to go back within space and time, because it doesn't serve you any longer. And that is part of the life. So yes, the shadow work can be important for more growth, but it is important not to be constantly stuck and saying, I want to continually do all of this and clean it up. Because part of why you're here is to have the human experience and to learn and to have fun and to enjoy. And so if you constantly say, I'm going to keep digging for all of this shadow work, you're never going to experience life and what fun is and joy. And so it is about the balance of it. When something comes up and you recognize it, it's about working with it. And then it's about letting it go and moving on. Do not dwell in it. Do not sit in it. Do not make it part of who you are. Recognize it, let it go, and then allow for something new to come in. Because when you can clear out space, when you can clear out all of those things, the same way when you clean a closet, you make space for the new clothes to come in. The same is said for your soul and your etheric body and your higher self. When you can clear out what's no longer there, It can allow for you to bring in what you need now that will better serve you moving forward, as the other thing did not before. Is that helpful for you?
Oh, I love that. And even going back to the earth and like almost looking at maybe pollution as like, I don't want to say as the shadow work, but it's like we're acknowledging it and we're releasing it and we're bringing in the space to heal and the space to actually live in relationship with the earth in a really beautiful way. So I really thank you so much. I love that.
Of course. Anything else you have for us?
Do you have any final things to share with us?
There's much for you all to understand and to grasp. Continue your learnings. Continue being inquisitive with what is out there and what comes to you. Some you may hold with you. Some you may go, aha, and then you will let go. But don't be closed off to the impossible as you would believe it, because so much more is coming. So much more has been created. And this is just the beginning of life as you know it. Anything else you have for us then?
I think you had an interesting question here about AI. I think you should ask that.
Oh, that might be encapsulated in the shadow work.
Yeah,
but
it might be.
I did have a question about, and I said, artificial intelligence, but is a lot of the technology that people are afraid of now, should we be afraid of it?
Well, it is never good to live in fear. It is never good to be fearful of things, because when you are fearful of it, you are bringing more of that to you and you are putting up blocks and boundaries. Instead, understand that, yes, there are things that can be of a negative consequence. The same way you could say the same thing for drinking water or for food or other things. But it is about knowing that, yes, it is coming to you, because it's about understanding a new way of thinking, a new way of believing, a new way of understanding information. And so, yeah, do not be fearful of it, but instead say, yes, I'm going to understand it. I'm going to learn from it. Not saying you need to embrace it fully, but saying, let me see how this comes through. The same way you could say, if there's a new species found of animal, you would say, well, we're going to live within the construct that it's here. We're going to coexist. Well, it's about coexisting with the AI as well, and understanding that it is just showing you a different side of technology, which can be used for positive or can be used for negative. And it's just showing you the duality of what is there. And when you can understand duality, and that AI is just showing you another duality of the human life, of the human experience, it'll be better able for you to grasp and for you to understand that how it is showing you different things. So do not be fearful of it. Do not embrace it though either. Instead, look at it with an open eye of, how does this affect me? What am I learning? How can this be integrated into part of my life? And maybe it is integrated in the smallest form, or maybe it's integrated in a larger form. But the more you can allow for these things to shift, the more you can allow for yourself to understand, the farther along you will be. And you may notice that it will change and it will shift to truly be what it needs to be, as the technology also continues to be enhanced on the earthly plane. Anything else you have for us today?
I thought that was like really amazing, because I get lost at the AI thing sometimes. No, I think maybe we could ask one final, since the show is called Ungovernable. Is there any just last minute kind of advice on finding freedom in your life, on finding freedom in how we live, how we exist in this life?
Well, freedom is in the eye of the beholder. Freedom is not tangible. Freedom is how you view things, how you experience things, and where you want to put your energy. So you could say that everyone is free because they all have the ability to go where they want to go, to have their own belief system, to have their own thought process, their own structure. They have all of that. There is freedom in that. Or you could say, well, they don't have that because you're being told what to think, what to do, how to do it. It is all about how you believe in these things. And so when you look at this construct of where you are, it is about finding the balance for each of you of what you would consider within that freedom state. For some, it is living in a place that there's no one telling them what to do or how to do it, that there is complete and total autonomy. But they also may find that that could create anarchy, or that could create more problems. There are those that have found the balance and say, I just focus on what allows me to live, and I don't focus on the other. It's not important to me. And so the same way someone could say, well, I want to own a home, I want to buy a house, so I'm going to do that. And someone else says, I don't really care where I live. I just move around as I need to. I will rent a house here, I'll rent a house there, I'll go here, I'll work on a boat, I'll do all these things. So it is about understanding that it is about what calls to you from a freedom or an ungovernable stance. And what it calls to you may be different for someone else. And it is not a judgment of what each being thinks. But when you are so caught up in that I am oppressed, I have all this negative, I'm being put down, if that is what you focus on, that is what will come to you. Instead, look at the other side of the duality. And when you start to see the freedoms you have, when you start to understand that, you will find that the universe will say, well, we will send more of this to you. We will send more of that to you. And that is when you'll go, wow, it is getting even bigger. And when, as soon as you start to think about that, what you don't have, that is when that will come to you. So just be open to what each being needs, because what is important for you may be not important for someone else. And that will truly allow for all of this to come through and all of this to flow. Did that answer your question for you?
You asked the question.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Freedom being defined by what you feel individually. And two people could be in a relationship and that freedom feels different. But at the same time, they might have a unified sense of freedom that they can agree and meet in, but then also having their own individual idea of what that is. And not necessarily focusing on the not freedom, but focusing on, you know, the choices available. I love it.
Yes. Yes. Anything else you have for us today, then?
I don't know if you have anything. I'm
No,
good.
I'm good. Thank you so much.
Of course. We've given you much to think about. And that was you. There we go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very cool.
Questions on what they said, I'll remember for about the next half hour or so. And then if you ask me what they said, I'll be like, I have no idea what we talked about. So
I don't really have a question like as far as clarification, but when you channel like that, are you like, do you feel an energy drain afterward? Like, what is it like after you go through a channeling session?
No, I don't feel an energy drain anymore. When I first started, I did. For me, I feel I feel very etheric, so I have to really reground, you know, so I'll probably go walk around outside in the grass a little bit and reground. But I have kind of an energy uptick, you know, I feel very energized. I feel like I can do a lot. And so I think it's just part of, you know, there's so much flowing through me that it just kind of gives me that, whew, like I'm ready to go again. So there is a point where I can channel for about a max of about 2 hours a day. Then after that, I'm kind of like, okay, I can't, like, I think I'm just so ungrounded then that it's just, it's too much for the physical body to handle. But yeah.
I will say that the first thing they were talking about, I'm pretty sure it was pointed toward you, but it could have been me too. But I like
the duality.
The duality. I feel like that was 100% something.
It was all for, it was, that first message was all for you, Matt. It was, I mean, I could see them like, just like, look at, like, my eyes were closed, but I was like, oh, this is all him. Like, it was like, you weren't even there. It was like, figure this out.
Yeah. How did you feel about that? Because I felt like, I'm like, wow, that's definitely for you.
No, it definitely resonates. It's something that I think I've battled with for a long time in my life. So I've always felt like I've had one life, one foot in, you know, something like you stated at the beginning, where, you know, you're trained to kind of check all the boxes and get the job in the 401k and that kind of thing, and be the average or be like what's expected of you, right? And there was always a piece of me that was very creative but rebellious against the other part of it. And I seem to ping pong between the two, and it's tough to bring them together and really kind get them to be friends.
Yeah. And you are not alone. It's your own consciousness and soul going, we don't know what to do. So I was there. I mean, I couldn't even tell people I was a channeler. I'm like, I'm into astrology. And they'd be like, oh,
Meanwhile, you're like, astrology, I can't get it.
I know. I was like, can't get even, So yeah. So you'll get there. You'll figure. They may push, your guides may push you a little bit on it, but you'll get there.
Yeah.
I have a lot of work to do.
And I loved the piece about so in human design, the 2027 is when like a vibration comes in and another one leaves, and it's just this new kind of vibration. We've had the same gate in human design since the 1600s, and it's the first time it's going to move since the 1600s. So it's actually going into the gate. Yeah, we've been in a gate of planning since 16 something. And then now in February of 2027, it's going into the gate of the sleeping phoenix. And a lot of people are like on that day. But I love what you said. It's a little before, a little after. It's like, it's totally going to be this, we're like apparently midwifing us right now. Like it's already, we're seeing it. Yeah. And I love that idea of plugging into the neighbors, because I think that's what so many of us do. Like, I remember when I was on your podcast, I'm like, the images and the little stories you gave, like, just brought it down to like, I can understand that. Like that I can totally understand. Like, I'm plugging into someone else's shit and it's not meant for me.
Right. Yeah. And you're going to take the hard way because they're going to take all the energy and you're going to be left with the scraps and your house won't light. So it's like, just take, you might have to dig a trench through your front yard, but do it the right way and you'll, at least you'll have light in your house. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also like the aspect of, actually it echoed throughout most of the questions, was the, just the personal accountability thing, right? So, something that a number of my friends echo all the time is no one is coming to save you. And that's technically true, right? Like, and again, it goes back to that whole like fate versus free will kind of thing. The opportunities may present themselves to you, but you have to be willing to actually act on them and do the work, right? Like it won't just come to you, magically, and you don't have to do anything for it. Like sometimes you have to suffer for it, but when it's there in front of you, you have to kind of identify it. And I think a lot of people do either tap into their neighbors or they look for some other path that isn't there, or that gets dangled in front of them as the path that they need to walk, when really they kind of need to look more introspectively in terms of how they need to act and be less focused on what's happening to them versus what they're doing, or not doing.
It's the same concept as someone says, I'm looking for a spouse, my wife, my husband, my whatever. And it's like, well, you never leave your house and you sit inside all day and watch TV. What are they going to do? Come knocking on the door and go, hey, I'm going to be your partner. It's like, it's not going to happen. It's the same thing. It's like, but maybe an opportunity came for you to go to a party and to meet them, or maybe to go to the grocery store, just like be open. So it's a similar concept of just, put in a little extra work, and
the running theme of just really, it is our souls are here on an individual journey, and to really connect in and to feel into where your power source is, right? And to feel into like, and what is that shadow? Where do I need to make space? Where is my shadow?
And what you have versus focusing on what you have not.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Yeah. We always focus on the negative, and it's like, we need to shift that. And that's been hard for me to do as well. And I'm just, every time I try to be grateful for what I have, it's like, okay, I'm grateful that I have, whatever it may be, clients, that I have friends, that I have a place to live, I just really have tried to shift that.
Yeah.
And I loved the piece about climate change, because saying that in the sense that like we can't, like these things have happened before, but being able to see okay, well, maybe the time is like people take all of this climate change stuff and they make it into this disaster. But
Mhm.
the earth, I really feel like the earth is way smarter than us. Do you not?
For sure. Yeah.
I feel like it's definitely
It's
going to out survive us.
right. It's healing itself. The same way, like when we're sick with a cold, or it's like you go take a bath or you take a shower. Like you want that to help you heal. And I've heard for years, when they talk about, the glaciers melting, and I would hear them say, well, we're just replenishing the aquifers. Like you guys have depleted all the fresh water. Like how are we going to give you water if you guys keep using it all?
Like,
I'm
what
like,
an amazing
oh,
thought,
that
right?
makes sense. Yeah. Like, oh, that makes sense. But they've also said, there's a lack of gratitude. Like no one gives gratitude for the earth and what it's providing, because everything we have comes from the earth. Even when they say, oh, that's plastic, that's not earthly, it's negative. Well, we still use the raw, like we're not shipping stuff in from Mars to to create anything. So it's still there. So yeah, it's just, that's how I try to look at it, and go, okay, we're just, getting more fresh water for the next,
Like,
million
what
years.
an awesome way to I mean, honestly, have you ever heard anyone put it that way? It comes out so simply.
Now after this, I have to go Google, because a lot gets made of like these hot button issues, and there's always these articles that come out that are like, the headline is something like, if it's like people that are like if the popular opinion is that like climate change is a bad thing, right? Most of the articles are like, this is going to happen and it's going to be awful and all this other stuff. Now I need to go Google, like, if anyone's written an article that's not The Onion, right? That is like, the positives of climate change, right? Like,
You've got to go find. But what an awesome, simple thing. Like we just needed more fresh water, or like that makes so much sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, if you sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I hear about Atlantis, and they say, we had to flood Atlantis because it wasn't working anymore. Well, how do you think they did that? I don't think like they had 1,000 years of rain, like probably melted a few things, raised the sea level. It's like, okay, we're moving on. So
yeah. I
the
mean,
earth
it's
is it's living and breathing. They talk about the shifts of the continents and you have an earthquake or, something that, and I know there's the conspiracy theories that people can control that. And I don't know if that's the case or not, but I really think that the consciousness of Mother Earth, it's only going to allow for what it needs to do to, to breathe and to live and to shift what's needed.
Yeah.
I love it, because when I first started learning about the Akashic records and going deeper in, we spent a lot of time going into the earth. And I've been in the Akashic records of the earth, but I also have been in the Akashic records of where we live, and just going into the history and the energy of where we live. And I think it's so important, wherever you are living, like on the actual land that you sleep and like eat and wake up on, to like give it a little love. Like this earth that you are on is holding you, and when you're sleeping and you're not awake, and there's all like, and so the beautiful, like the day after I went into our property, he looks at me and I'm outside saging the whole property, going, I love you, But I was like literally like, thank you. Because we live on a mountain, right? It's, I mean, I don't know. It's like, we don't ever think about the earth we think about our house. Right?
I have to work on that a lot, because I curse the mountain that we live on, because I dig and you get 6 inches into dirt and there's rocks and but
we don't we have gratitude for the walls that hold us in, but not very often are we looking at the ground that those walls and foundation are on. And it has its own Akashic record. That land, since the beginning of its existence, has had an Akashic record to its stuff. And so it's so interesting. I love it. I think everything you spoke about that was absolutely brilliant. I think that was brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting how they always say things. And, if you go back and re-listen to this, then, at a later time, you're going to hear something else in there, or something very different. It's interesting how the messages keep coming through in a different way every time. but it is just about reconnection, you know, looking back on who you are, what you need, you know, looking at the shadow sides, but letting it go, having gratitude for where you're at, what you're experiencing, and just having fun, you know, just enjoy life. We've taken the joy out of it, you know, and people that have a lot of joy are looked down upon, but you've got to enjoy it.
Well, people have so much stress in their lives, right? Like
Mhm.
we were talking about this the other day. Like I was talking a lot about it being a Gen X mom the other day. I was on a podcast and I was talking about, wow, how freaking hard it is because everything has changed in our lifetime since being a kid, a young adult, and now a parent in this day and age, and how much stress it is between money, between being a wife, maybe having a job, being a mother, and taking care of your parents. Like and then the social media and the AI and all that. Like you can go a little bit crazy and forget about yourself. There's so much stress, right? That it's hard to move.
But that's dwelling in the shadow.
It is, but you have to acknowledge it first, don't you?
Well,
like
sure.
you have to at least acknowledge it.
You have to acknowledge it, but you also have to look at that. We were taught that we always had to put everyone else first. That was our generation. That Gen X generation was taught you do for everybody else and you always put yourself last. Where the paradigm needs to shift. And if you look at the new generation coming up, they are number one and they could care less about anybody else.
That's our 7-year-old.
Yeah. But we need to shift that to understand that we can only be as good as we are ourselves. So for people that are finding that stress, supporting their families, you know, being the mom, having the career, the wife, whatever else it is, the coach, the PTA president, whatever it looks like, that, you know, if you can only give what you have. So taking those times to say, I need to focus on me. And maybe it's just 5 minutes a day of just taking a deep breath and saying, all right, today I'm focusing on being a mom. The rest of it's going to have to sit aside. Or, you know what, today I'm apparently the teacher. So, you know, like I'm going to focus on this because that's just letting you build up better. And so it's just about taking those moments and in the stressful time saying, okay, what do I need to get done and what is important?
Actually, that's a huge point too.
And having fun.
People create stress. We talk about this all the time. It's about like expectation and to what you were talking about when you were channeling, you know, kind of paying attention to what presents itself to you and being open to it and acknowledging it. I think there's a lot of people out there that, whether it be because they were told to have certain expectations or whether or not they've just generated those expectations on their own, they fight the natural flow of what happens during the day, right? And they feel like I've done this my entire life. And it's like, I have an expectation for what's going to happen in the day ahead. And if
kids make it really hard.
If it doesn't play out perfectly, I feel like a failure. I'm a basket case. Like I lash out, like all kinds of things, right? And it's been very difficult to just take a step back and be like, okay, what am I being presented with today? And can I actually reasonably expect to do these things, or is just today not the day, right? And I mean, a lot of times the answer is today ain't the day.
And you know what?
Tomorrow.
And maybe today wasn't supposed to be the day because tonight you're like, oh, I had this huge aha moment, which is going to make it a lot easier, you know?
Or it never had to be done in the first place.
Exactly.
Right?
If someone else did it, you're like, oh, that was nice. Okay, they handled that. So
I love it because even like last night, I don't like the kids to be on the phones as much, but I was like, I really wanted to hang and have fun with my littlest. So we just put Snapchat on and took pictures with the different filters, which she gets such a kick out of. Like, I don't get that much of a kick out of it, but I get a kick out of watching her. And it was like, I don't know, 20 minutes. And I was just laughing with her. And then my oldest daughter came. We were all three of us laughing. And then she's running over to him, showing him the pictures. And I'm like, that doesn't happen unless I'm like, you know what? I want to be joyful with my daughter. Normally I'd be like, no, you shouldn't be on that. You know, it's not something, but I made the choice to like, okay, it's time to laugh a little. And even if we have these stressed out moments and there's so much pressure. I mean, and so as moms or dads and there's so much pressure in so many different ways, like just making the time to like, okay, I can let go. Even if you have to say to yourself, I have 15 minutes and I'm going to let go for 15 minutes.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I got it. It's on. Let's go. Whatever it is to bring in that joy and to bring in the gratitude and to bring in the laughter.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
It is a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We have kept Catherine for an hour 40.
I can't wait to listen to the creativity one again. I'm so excited because there was so much interesting information about creativity. And
So that episode is going to be on
It'll be on YouTube.
On YouTube, the channeled source that's coming out next week?
Yes. Yep. It'll be on the channeled sources site. I'll shoot you over a link, Jocelyn, to it once it's posted. Probably Wednesday, Thursday. I'm not the most, I kind of go with what calls to me. So
yeah.
I probably should have a little more control over that, but I don't. But yeah, it'll go out this week, probably Wednesday, Thursday. And and I will shoot the link over, but it was a really cool conversation.
It was a super cool conversation. And it really took creativity down to its roots and its core. I think I might have said after our session, I think I might have said to like 5 people, yeah, my daughter's creative when she plays with rocks in the front yard. Like it totally brought it down to like bare bones roots, the importance of it, and like how to like really easily tap in. It was like such an amazing channeling session. I am so grateful to have done that. So I can't wait to. I'll definitely post it, and you can post it on the Ungovernable one as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely do that.
Yeah.
All right. Any more questions or anything like that for Catherine before we let her go?
No. So on your website, people can get in touch with you.
Yeah, you go to my website and kind of check out who I am, what I've done. I offer the free 20-minute, like, just get to know me, I call it. You can ask questions about, who I am, how I channel, what I am, see if there's an affinity. And you can also book sessions on there as well to get to know me. It can also be found on YouTube. Obviously, I've got a lot of our recordings up there. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, the usual.
We'll
the usual for my age, I should say.
Have you ever seen on Instagram? I was just showing him for the first time. There's some lady, something glow. She does the dowsing rods and she just asks questions. We have to get her on. She must get questions from her audience. And she just goes on and puts hers. I want to say it's like So Glow or something like that. I have to find it. And she just holds it. And you watch. Look, whenever anyone does
I watch her
like
hands every time
like,
she does it.
What are they moving? That's the thing that you do, right? But they are solid. There's no muscles moving in her fingers. And she's asking questions she's a Reiki person and a channeler. Okay. And she asks questions, I guess, from her audience. And the questions range from, can anyone go into a fairy ring? Are our elections rigged? Like, who's going to win? Like, and really political stuff, like really crazy questions. And she throws them in and it's always like, thank you.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Or like, no, thank you. Yeah.
But it's like amazing because I'm like, now I want to get dowsing. Have you ever worked with dowsing rods?
I have. I worked when I have a friend who's really into paranormal, and so they use dowsing rods a lot there. So I have used them, and they are really, they're really interesting in how they work. I completely believe in them. I just see them as another tool. We have tarot cards or pendulums or everything. But you should try a set. There's a lot of like ghost tours that I've come across that they'll like hand out a pair of dowsing rods for people to try.
Dowsing rods to like sense it. I'm gonna go on Etsy because that's where I get everything is Etsy.
Yeah, and you can I've even seen novices use them and ask questions. Like if they're in a place that's haunted, that they'll ask the ghosts different questions. It's interesting to see what comes forward. So
we're gonna have to ask. I forget his name, but in like a week or two, we have the guy coming up.
Supernatural guy coming up.
He does. He's like almost like a monster tracker hunter.
He put himself out originally as a like Bigfoot type person, and we have in New Jersey, we have the Pine Barrens, which we are not close to. Thank God, because I probably do believe they say there's like a Bermuda Triangle right in the Pine Barrens. It's like a portal, and that so there are creatures. So they like
that explains why the mob drops all their bodies there.
Maybe, but I have a friend who remember my friend. What did he see? Not Mothman. It's the praying mantis man. There's a mantis man in New Jersey. He said he saw mantis man. You have 2 people in your family who've seen Bigfoot. There is something to it. I don't know what it is, but there is something.
Oh, it is. I was up in west of Milwaukee. It's called the Haunted Forest in Burlington, Wisconsin. There is some really interesting stuff there. And there's a photo of me with no legs. And that's when I stepped into a portal. Yeah. It's like, I totally believe in all of it. Yeah. It really, it's freaky. Yeah. And there's a photo of my friend. She has no arms. They're just all blurred. Yeah. Yeah. If you ever get to Wisconsin, you gotta go to the
We're gonna have to ask that dude about dowsing rods, because he also talks about portals too, right?
Yeah,
because he's of the mindset that there's portals, and that's how some of these creatures.
And Pine Barrens is where they are.
Yeah.
That's Jersey. It has a very active one.
Yeah.
There.
Which, by the way, there was also a super. I don't know if you like what other shows you watch or whatever, but Joe Rogan actually just had Tucker Carlson on, and they were talking about UFOs and stuff like that.
That shit's crazy.
And he went on some diatribe about them not actually being like aliens, but them being other otherworldly beings that are essentially kind of passing through from parallel universes.
Would you say interdimensional?
Yeah, that's basically what he said. And he also used the phrase angels and demons, right? Some of them are good and some of them are bad. But I don't know.
I totally believe that, and myself, I can open portals. So that was kind of something I got from being up in the forest. So yeah, it's crazy what comes through them. So yeah.
Do you ever channel in nature? Go out and do women's circles or magical circles or?
Yeah. I definitely have done that. Yeah, connected in with that, done ceremonies, and allowed for that information to flow through. So
do you feel when you're in the forest and you're out in nature and you're connected, do you feel it's a stronger connection to your channeling?
No, I think it's about me and my just connection to the consciousness. Yeah. So yeah, I don't feel a difference. I can feel the difference of the people that are around, maybe the land I'm on, but no, it's always the same. Yeah, the same connection that I feel there. When I do energy healing, because that's more channeled, I use portal energy, I bring in other beings and other things. That's very different at times, because it's not just the druids, it's the druids and then the Reiki masters and Archangel Michael and Jesus and Muhammad, all these other beings that I kind of call in. So that's a little different.
Yeah. I love it. So I'm not a religious person, but being in the Akashic Records, I started to learn about masters, ascending masters, mentors. And so I have a very unhappy relationship with religion and Catholicism in particular. And I absolutely boom. I mean, my grandmother was a shame on you, Polish Catholic 5 days a week. When I got confirmed, I wore my stiletto heels and my mini dress and my big old to rebel because they made me get confirmed, because they didn't want her to die if I didn't get confirmed, and so I rejected all of that for a long time. And just when I got back into the Akashic Records, I was looking at the Sophia Code. Have you ever heard of the Sophia Code? The Sophia Code. And then I started looking and working with Mary Magdalene and Jesus Christ. And I was like, this is so interesting, because it's a whole new understanding outside of organized religion of these people who have laid their feet on this earth, but are maybe no longer here. And I it's been very empowering to really kind of channel through their stories. Yeah. It's been really empowering.
Yeah, I think what we've heard of a lot of these ascended masters is very different from what actually was there. Because I had the same thought with Jesus. I was raised Catholic. But he's been coming more to me within my healings and within not necessarily my channeling so much, verbally, but I've just been working with him more. And then I have a friend who started when she channels many beings, but he was the only one that will come to me. So it's been very interesting to walk this path. And I think it's about understanding that he's just showing us one aspect of the consciousness. You can look at the divine feminine, which I believe is Mary Magdalene. I believe it's Isis. I believe it's Mother Mary. There's so many beings that come through us in looking at that sense. And I believe Jesus came through as a healer. I mean, he was here to heal and to
show miraculousness and to say, you know what, we can all be one. Now, it didn't really happen that way, but he taught a lot. You just have to take the noise out of what came through. I mean, you look at the Course on Miracles, that was, channeled.
Yeah.
That is a very, I think that's what his point was of coming here. We just adjusted it.
Well, it's so interesting because once you get involved in this world of dimensions and timelines and past lives, and it feels to me limitless and beautiful, and and just going back to what you said in the beginning, anyone can tap in, anyone can channel and get close and into for me, I think people just need to develop a relationship with their body because their body is the instrument. Mm-hmm. Would you have any advice for someone who maybe wants to try getting in touch with that ability to channel? Or
I think it's finding out what calls to your gifts. For some people it'll be writing, for some people it will be speaking, for other people it could be movement of dance, or it could be energy healing, feeling the energy come through. So I think it's connecting with what calls to you, and then it's really about just letting it flow. The thing that I find with most people that take my intro course is that they'll always say, well, I don't think this is right. It's just trust it. You're not on stage, giving a presentation to someone about what you're saying. It comes through. And as you learn to build that muscle and discern which collective you're working with, which for most people starting out, it's going to be your guides, that'll allow for you to pick up. I know when it's the Druid consciousness, but I know when it's the divine feminine, which doesn't come through. But I also know when it's, just my ego that's popping in, or when it's my higher self. So you'll just start to discern those differences, and don't judge it. Just let it flow.
So do you have a class or a course that you offer?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I teach it in beginning intuition, and then I also teach a beginning to channel class. Both of them are coming up in person in the Chicagoland area, but I'll have more coming in online this fall. So
that's good to know. I feel like more and more we need to get in touch with our intuition and our channeling as this 2027 comes through. Plug it into the neighbor, right? I know. I'm pumped.
Wait, what's funny is you came up with that analogy came through.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking about you talking about the power bill this past month, and it only being $90 because we didn't have to put on the air conditioning. It's very funny.
We went from $350 to $92.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, he was crazy. Yeah.
So this is awesome. I have loved having you on. Thank you so much. I hope people go and check you out and check out your series, because before I went on your podcast, I looked at a bunch of them and I'm like, these are the awesomest questions ever to ask. These are so people always want to know the meanings of things. And it's it goes, well, you said it earlier because he checked out some of your stuff too. It's spiraling. It's when you start channeling, it spirals wide. And then right before you do you have any, questions, you've kind of come in to the center of the spiral, almost like a shell.
Yeah.
And they're just really great. So I hope people go and check it out.
Yeah, they got to keep it wide, but then bring them in. That is what they always tell me. They're if we give it direct to them, they're going to go, oh, no. So yeah.
Yeah.
You picked up how they do it. Yeah. So this was wonderful. I really thank you guys for inviting me on and having me a part of this. I have had a great time tonight.
So much fun.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Reminder, everyone, go check out the channeled source, right?
Yeah.
Channelledsource.com.
Is it the channeled source or channel?
Yeah, thechannelledsource.com. And the link is down in the description. So Katherine,
wonderful.
Thank you so much.
So wonderful.
And everyone that made it 2 hours with us, we appreciate you. You're hardcore.
Tomorrow everyone is off. So
that is true.
Enjoying it.
Yeah. So, all right. You will be back at it next week on Sunday night. Katherine, hopefully you have a fantastic Memorial Day, the remainder of your Memorial Day weekend. And with that, anything else?
No, nothing else.
That's it.
Else.
All right.
You can hang tight. We'll do the credits.
Yeah, we will roll. We'll roll the AI generated theme song.
Well, we're embracing it.
All right. Peace, everyone. Have a good one.
Fresh echo your mind, it's time to redefine. You're the spiritual quest, leaving the rest behind. Ungovernable, breaking through the status quo. We untamable, watch our spirit elevating consciousness. Yeah, we on the rise.